The day I defended my doctoral dissertation, my father was 40 minutes away, sitting in a casino in Atlantic City, because my brother's bachelor party couldn't be rescheduled. I found out when I called him right after they handed me the hood. My hands were still shaking. My advisor had just called me Dr. Whitfield in front of a room full of people, and I'd had to bite the inside of my cheek to keep from crying. I stepped into the hallway, dialed my dad's number, and heard slot machines in the background before he even said hello. "Hey, sweetheart, how'd it go?" Like he hadn't known the date for 8 months. Like it wasn't on the family calendar he made such a big deal about keeping updated. Like he hadn't personally told me, 3 weeks before, that he was so proud and wouldn't miss it. I said it went fine. I hung up. I stood in that hallway in my regalia with the tassel still swinging, and I thought, this is it. This is the thing I will carry for the rest of my life. Let me back up. I'm the older one, 31 now. My brother is 26, still living in the house where we grew up in suburban New Jersey, working a job my father essentially handed him at his company. Growing up, I understood early on that I was the one who had to earn things, and my brother was the one things were given to. I didn't resent him for it when we were kids. Kids don't make those choices. But I watched it happen, and I cataloged it, the way you do when you're young and paying attention and nobody realizes you're paying attention. I put myself through undergrad on scholarships and part-time jobs. My brother's tuition was paid without question. When I got into a PhD program in clinical psychology, fully funded, stipend included, at a program that accepted 9 people that year, my parents' response was genuinely warm but brief. A nice dinner, a card. My father said he was proud, and then pivoted immediately to talking about my brother's new car. My brother's new car that my father had co-signed for. I'm not listing these things to make my family sound like monsters. I'm listing them because context matters, and I spent a long time wondering if I was making it up. I have years of therapy, and a very patient husband named Wesley who has gently confirmed, more than once, that I was not making it up. Wesley and I got married 18 months ago. Small ceremony, 30 people, a venue in the Hudson Valley that we saved for together over 2 years. We set the date 14 months in advance. We told everyone immediately. My parents said they'd be there. My mother cried on the phone. My father said, and I wrote this down because I knew I'd need to remember it exactly. Nothing could keep me from walking my girl down that aisle. Nothing, it turned out, except my brother's engagement party. My brother got engaged 11 months after we announced our wedding date. His fiancée, perfectly nice woman, I want to be clear, she's not a villain in this story, wanted an engagement party in Savannah, Georgia. Her family was from there. It was a whole thing. Flights, hotels, a long weekend. My parents booked it before anyone thought to check the calendar. Our wedding was the same weekend. When my mother called to tell me, she cried again. Different kind of crying this time. She said she didn't know how this happened. She said maybe Wesley and I could move the date. I said we had a signed contract with a venue, a caterer, a photographer, and 30 guests who had already booked travel. She said she understood, but maybe the deposit wasn't that much. I said it was $4,000. She got quiet. My father got on the phone. He said, "These things happen, sweetheart. We'll celebrate with you when we're back. We'll do a nice dinner. We'll make it special." I said okay. I said I understood. I got off the phone, and I sat on the bathroom floor for about 20 minutes, and then I washed my face, and I went out told Wesley, and watched his jaw go tight in the specific way it does when he's deciding how to be supportive instead of furious. He said, "If this were my family doing this to you, what would you tell me?" I didn't answer. We both knew what I'd tell him. The wedding was beautiful. My best friend from grad school walked me down the aisle. The venue was everything we'd saved for. Wesley cried when he saw me, which made me cry, which made the photographer cry, which is a whole thing we still laugh about. The family rows weren't empty exactly. My aunt came, a few cousins, Wesley's whole family, but there were seats that should have been filled and weren't. My dad's seat, my mom's seat, my brother's seat. During the cocktail hour, my phone rang, my father's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer. I did. He was at the airport. He said they were about to board, but he wanted to call before they lost signal. He said he was thinking about me and he hoped the day was beautiful. I said, "The ceremony was 2 hours ago, Dad." He said he knew. He said he was sorry. He said they'd make it up to me. I hung up and went back to my reception and danced with my husband until midnight, and I did not let them ruin it. I want that on the record. I did not let them ruin it, but I also didn't forget. The fallout afterward was quieter than I expected, which in some ways was worse. My parents came back from Savannah and called and left a voicemail saying they missed me and they had gifts. My mother texted photos from the engaged party. My brother sent a 2-line text that said, "Heard the wedding was nice. Can't wait to celebrate with you guys." No call, no apology, no acknowledgement that something significant had occurred. Wesley and I talked about it a lot. He was raised in a family where things got addressed directly, and he kept gently suggesting I say something. I kept not saying it. I had a whole internal argument with myself about whether my anger was proportionate, whether I was holding things to an impossible standard, whether this was just what families did, and I needed to let it go. Then my brother set a wedding date. They picked a venue in Charleston. Big wedding, 200 guests. My brother's fiancée had a large extended family and a lot of college friends, and apparently a very social circle from her job in finance. The date was 14 months out. They were clearly excited, and my parents were over the moon. My mother called me first, which I noted. She said she hoped I'd be a bridesmaid. I said I'd think about it. She said she hoped I wasn't still upset about our wedding. I said I wasn't upset, which was not entirely true, but I also wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet, and I didn't want to have that conversation on the phone in the parking lot of a Trader Joe's. I thought about it for 2 weeks. Wesley and I talked about it with our therapist. We do couples therapy, highly recommend. It has saved us so much circular fighting, and she asked me what outcome I was hoping for. I said I wanted my family to understand that what they did was wrong, and I wanted them to feel bad about it. She said that was understandable. She also asked whether attending the wedding was likely to produce that outcome. It was not. I RSVP'd yes. I ordered a gift from the registry. I booked a hotel in Charleston, and then I started making a different kind of plan. I have a friend. I'll call her my work friend because she's someone I met at my practicum placement, and we've been close ever since, who does event production on the side. Corporate events, some private parties. She's the person I call when I need something executed perfectly. I told her what I was thinking, and she did not even blink. She said, "Give me the details." Here's what I put together over the following 10 months. A video, 14 minutes long. Clips of our wedding, the venue, the ceremony, the dancing, all the moments my family missed, interspersed with screenshots, text messages from my mother, talking about how she couldn't wait for our wedding. How she'd been dreaming about this, how she was going to cry when she saw me in my dress. A voicemail from my father saying nothing could keep him from walking me down the aisle. And then at the end, the kicker, a screenshot of an Instagram post. My mother, standing in Savannah in a yellow sundress, cocktail in hand, smiling at the camera, posted at 4:47 p.m. on the day of my wedding. The caption, "Family is everything." My work friend built me a slideshow, professional, clean transitions. The music I'd had at my own ceremony, which I cannot say the name of for copyright reasons, but which you would recognize immediately and which is extraordinarily pointed in context. I also wrote a speech, not a confrontational speech, not a screaming speech, a quiet one, 4 minutes. The kind of speech where your voice stays completely level and every word lands like a stone. I went to Charleston. I wore a deep emerald dress, not black, not red. I wasn't trying to be theatrical. I just wore something that made me feel steady. Wesley came with me. He held my hand on the plane and didn't say much, and that was exactly right. The ceremony was at a historic estate outside the city. Outdoor ceremony, which meant the reception was in a tent, which meant there was a sound system, which my work friend had already scoped out because I'd asked her to attend as my +1. She looked like a guest. She was also in a pocket of her blazer carrying a drive. I want to be clear, I did not hack anything. I did not access anything I wasn't supposed to. The AV technician for the event was a freelancer who my work friend knew professionally. She had a conversation with him. He was sympathetic. That's all I'm going to say about that. The reception started. There was dinner, there were toasts, there was dancing. My parents were at a table near the front, my father in a suit I recognized from family photos, my mother in a pink dress with her hair done. They hugged me when I arrived and said I looked beautiful, and I smiled and said thank you, and I meant it in the most neutral possible way. My brother's new father-in-law gave a toast, the maid of honor gave a toast, and then the AV system played a different video than anyone was expecting. My face on the screen, clear, lit, steady. The beginning of the video I'd made. I watched my mother's face go white. I watched my father set down his glass. I watched my brother look around the room like he was trying to find an exit. And I watched 200 of their closest family's friends and colleagues watch 14 minutes of evidence that the people sitting at the head table had skipped their daughter's wedding for a party. I did not stand up. I did not make a scene. I sat at my table and watched the screen, and when it was over, I stood up, walked to the microphone that was still on from the toasts, and gave my 4-minute speech. I said that I loved my brother. I said I genuinely wished him and his wife every happiness. I said that I'd spent 18 months trying to figure out how to forgive my parents for missing the most important day of my life, and that I'd realized the problem wasn't the forgiveness. I could forgive them, privately, by myself, without needing them in the room. The problem was that they had never once acknowledged that what they did was wrong. I said, I don't need an apology anymore. I needed it a year ago. What I need now is for you to understand that actions have weight, and some things can't be made up for with a nice dinner. I thanked everyone for attending my brother's wedding. I said I meant that sincerely. I walked back to my table, took Wesley's hand, picked up my bag, and we left. We drove back to the hotel. I did not shake or cry or have the release I'd been expecting. I just felt very still. Wesley asked if I was okay, and I said I thought so, and I meant it. We ordered room service and watched a movie and fell asleep early, and in the morning we drove to the airport and came home. My phone was full of messages by then. My mother, a string of texts starting with shock, then anger, then something that was almost an apology but kept circling slow back to how embarrassed she was in front of everyone. My father called 6 times and left 2 voicemails. In the second one, he cried. He said he hadn't understood, and he was saying it now, really saying it. He hadn't understood how much he'd hurt me. My brother sent 1 text. That was a lot. I'm not sure how to feel right now. Some of my father's colleagues were at that wedding. People he'd worked with for 20 years. People who had heard him, over the years, describe himself as a family man. I am not going to pretend that didn't factor into my plan. It did. I'm at peace with that. I didn't respond to any of the messages that night. I responded 3 days later, 1 text to each of them. The same text, I love you. I'm not interested in a conversation right now. I'll reach out when I'm ready. It's been 4 months. I haven't reached out yet. Maybe I will someday. Maybe what my father said in that voicemail was real, and maybe someday it'll matter to me. But for right now, I'm not ready, and for the first time in my adult life, I feel entirely clear about the fact that not being ready is okay. I don't have to perform forgiveness on a timeline that's comfortable for them. Wesley and I have been spending a lot of weekends with his family. His mom taught me how to make her grandmother's apple cake last month, and I cried a little in her kitchen, and she just handed me more flour and didn't make it weird, which is exactly what I needed. I have people who show up for me. It took me a long time to stop measuring that against the people who didn't. Here's the thing I want to say to anyone who's been the person sitting in the empty seat, the person told, "We'll celebrate later," the person who keeps making room for people who've never once made room for you. Later doesn't come. It never comes. The dinner they promise doesn't feel like your wedding. The call they make from the airport doesn't feel like walking you down the aisle. And you are allowed to say so. You are allowed to make it known. Not because it changes them. I'm not naive enough to think my 14-minute video rewired my father's brain, but because you deserve to have it witnessed. You deserve for the truth of what happened to exist somewhere outside your own chest. I defended my dissertation on a Thursday in October. It was raining. My advisor shook my hand. My husband was in the front row and stood up when they said my name. I went into the hallway and called my dad and heard slot machines in the background. That part of the story doesn't get a do-over, but I got to write the rest of it myself.